That definitely was a big factor of why I moved so far away from my hometown to go to college, just so I could start over. And as I've grown as a person and know how actions and words affect someone, I wonder what they were going through at home that they had to inflict so much pain on others at school. When bullying happens, everyone who is involved or witnesses it can have lasting impacts on their mental health and well-being. There is a strong connection between those who do present signs of suicide and a history of bullying. In one study of youth visiting emergency departments with suicidal ideation, researchers found that kids who reported cyberbullying are 11.5 times more likely to present suicidal ideation, while individuals reporting verbal bullying were 8.4 times more likely. Hey y'all, it's Sarah for another episode of How Great Thou Art podcast, and where we talk all things art, Catholicism, and Catholic art. Please subscribe to my channel and share this video with a friend. I would really greatly appreciate it. It's kind of been a while since I've done a podcast, so I wanted to kind of reiterate what I really want the goals of this podcast to be. I made this podcast for people who are curious about the faith and who are willing to walk alongside me as I'm learning a lot about the Catholic faith every day. I'm a Catholic artist, and to be a self-proclaimed artist and self-sustaining artist, I need to be able to have the confidence to be able to talk about my art, and research my faith and learn more and more about the Catholic faith, because hey, it's a lot. I hope to post twice a month, maybe every other week. I'll just have to see, since I am 6 months pregnant right now, so life is pretty chaotic and about to get more chaotic. And to support this podcast, if you would like, besides liking, commenting, and sharing, which I would love so much for you to do, I have an Etsy shop that has, I make handmade rosaries, car rosaries, not rosaries. I've been starting to make wedding lazos for bride and groom, and anything you guys can come up with that a jeweler can possibly help you out with. I would love to help you in those endeavors. So yeah, like I said, I can make custom rosaries and bulk orders as well, so just message me through either through this platform, social media, or through my Etsy itself. It should be Angelic Designs 2019. It should show up as Angelic Designs by Sarah. But yeah, I'll leave a link to my Etsy shop in the show notes. Before I get into it, I wanted to give a trigger warning, as this episode includes bullying and the topic of suicide, so please listen with care. I have mentioned in my previous episode that I go to a discussion group with fellow Christians, mostly Catholics, and we talk about some hard-hitting topics. A few weeks ago, we discussed ecumenism. Google says it's the principle or aim of promoting unity among the world's Christian churches. And we focused on how we treat others who are not of faith or do not align with our morals, if they're Christian, because I am Catholic. And within the discussion, we got around to talking about how we would talk about members of the LDS Church, how we would bring about that sort of topic with them, and how nicely to go about it. Some people were pretty, are willing to be pretty blunt with the LDS Church of how we are very different with them, but some others didn't take it so well, how blunt some Christians and Catholics can be. So our words can affect others around us very much so, not just in discussion groups, but how we plan to talk about our faith and what we believe in with others that could either are Christian, claim to be Christian, or the world sees as Christian, but they're really not. That part of the discussion got a little bit heated, along with how to talk to those who say they have faith but are not baptized, and what that looks like in a discussion with them. I don't want to get too much into that, but today I want to talk about the words we speak. I wanted to start by talking about a piece that I made back in my undergrad. My piece, Words or Lack of, is a collection of chains with words that led to the way down on me. I've gone through childhood trying to just ignore words instead of fighting back to the enemy. These words speak the strongest because they stick out from what I remember growing up in public school. I very much felt pain in hearing these words. And luckily I had my faith to keep me above the deep waters I could have drowned myself in. I very much feel by the grace of God that I was able to stay away from or ignore the people who tried to belittle me enough that it didn't affect me as badly as I've seen others affected by not being accepted by their peers. That definitely was a big factor of why I moved so far away from my hometown to go to college, just so I can start over. And as I've grown as a person and know how actions and words affect someone, I wonder what they were going through at home. They had to inflict so much pain on others at school. And I've kind of gotten that thought by watching a lot of true crime documentaries, a lot of true crime stories. I get that mostly from family testimonies about a victim or a potential killer. So the color of the piece is used as this visual of the choking back feeling that I had when it came to trying to speak out against my attackers, I should say, attackers with words. But I just couldn't. I didn't really have the confidence in myself to be able to come up with the words to fight back. Also, bottom line is I didn't care enough. I didn't care enough to want to be able to come up with the words to have to deal with that. Because it was just, I don't know, too much of a way down on my own heart that like I didn't need. I knew I didn't need that in my life. So I basically did try to ignore it, and I feel like I did. I feel like I was still able to be my own person in grade school. But I very much was a lot happier whenever I moved out of that town and went to my undergrad, just so I can be able to start fresh. For bullying, whether verbal or physical, can have a lasting effect on people. So according to stopbullying.gov, their article on the long-term effects of bullying, when bullying happens, everyone who is involved or witnesses it can have lasting impacts on their mental health and well-being. So bullying is linked to many negative outcomes, including increased risks of depression and anxiety, substance use, and suicide. Kids who are bullied can experience negative physical, social, emotional, academic, and mental health issues that can last into adulthood. Kids who are bullied are more likely to experience depression and anxiety disorders, self-esteem issues, health complaints, including high risks of headaches, stomach aches, and colds. The behaviors that can stem from that, like increased rates of smoking, increased risk of future health concerns, like higher stress levels or sleeping problems, and possible decrease in academic achievement, like a lower GPA, standardized test scores, and school participation. They're more likely to miss, skip, or drop out of school just to avoid the bullies. Sometimes they may even end up having to struggle with friendships and maintaining relationships later in life. Though the majority of kids who are bullied do not express violence towards others, a very small number of children who are bullied might retaliate through violent measures. In school shooting cases between 2013 and 2019, 60% of the shooters reported being bullied in person or online. And online is all just words. It's just talk. It's nothing. I don't know why people feel like they have so much more guts online to talk crap about somebody or like pass like terrible judgment to people while they're online. It's just really sad to hear about when I go through comments of things. Even right now as I'm going through pregnancy, and there's women that just want to vent, there's women on there that want to comment and pass their judgment on to them. And I'm just like, why is it your place to do that? Like, they understand, they even say in their posts that like they understand where their errors came from, and yet there's others that like try to push their agenda onto them or like, yeah, pass their judgment onto them. And so within a school, adults can play a key role in preventing and responding to bullying, and there are tools for adults that can help ensure all children are safe. Working with children to build uh, resilience to help kids who are bullied overcome these challenges and begin to thrive once again. So for the kids that bully others, can also engage in violent and other risky behaviors into adulthood. Kids who bully are more likely to abuse alcohol, tobacco, or drug use, experience depression or self harm, have a poor academic achievement, miss or drop out of school, experience aggressive and impulsive behavior, resulting in high risk of vandalism, fights, traffic offenses, and criminal charges. And especially perpetuate dating violence as early as the 8th grade and become abusive toward their romantic partners, spouses, or children as adults. The kids who have been bullied but also bully others themselves suffer the most consequences. These kids have higher risk of mental health and behavioral issues, making it crucial for adults to connect with these youth with support and resources like mental health counseling. Kids who are bullied and bully others are more likely to engage in early sexual activity and become a young parent, struggle with making and keeping friendships, having trouble keeping a job and honoring financial commitments in adulthood, and experience mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and antisocial personality disorder, as well as similar physical health concerns to kids who were only bullied. In correlation, bullying to suicide. Suicide is a serious concern for all kids who experience traumatic situations or mental health issues, including bullying. Although most kids who are bullied do not experience suicidal thoughts or self harm, there is a strong connection between those who do present signs of suicide and a history of bullying. In one study of youth visiting emergency departments with suicidal ideation, researchers found that kids who reported cyberbullying are 11.5 times more likely to present suicidal ideation, while individuals reporting verbal bullying were 8.4 times more likely. And again, this is a very touchy subject, and if you or anyone else you know needs help in this situation, you can call, text, or chat the 988 suicide hotline, suicide and crisis lifeline, anytime, day or night, for free confidential support from a counselor. All you have to do is text or dial 988. It's important to talk to all kids about what's going on in their lives to determine if they're involved in bullying or other concerning behaviors. Support from parents and caregivers, peers, and adults at school can help prevent and repair the consequences of bullying. And like I said before, I feel like there's definitely a correlation between uh, people that bully and how they're being treated at home. And when trying to think of like topics um, for this podcast, I was thinking about yelling and the effects of yelling it can have on a person. And according to the National Alliance on Mental Health, in an interview by Hillary Jacobs Handel, an author of It's Not Always Depression, I had a talk with a lady named Martha, and Martha said the problem with verbal abuse is that there's no evidence. And Hillary asked, "What do you mean what do you mean lack of evidence?" And Marta, Marta responded with, "When people are physically or sexually abused, it's concrete and real, but verbal abuse is amorphous. I feel like if I told someone I was verbally abused, they'd think I was complaining about being yelled at." And Hillary knows it's much more than that. The problem is no one can see my scars. Marta knew intuitively that her depression, anxiety, and deep-seated insecurity were wounds that stem from the verbal abuse she endured as a child. Marta said that she wished she had been beaten. She said that on more than one occasion in this interview. She felt like it would have been more legitimate in an outward appearance. Her statement was haunting and brought tears to Hillary's eyes. Verbal abuse is so much more than getting scolded. Marta told her that there are many reasons her mother's tirades were traumatizing. The loud volume of her voice, the shrill tone of her voice, the dead look in her eyes, and the crucial disdain and scornful facial expression that made Marta feel hated. The long duration, sometimes her mom yelled for hours. The names and insults, like you're spoiled, disgusting, and wretched. The unpredictability of that flip of a switch that turned her mother into someone else. And perhaps worst of all, the abandonment. Being frequently yelled at changes the mind, brain, and body in a multitude of ways, including increasing the activity of the amygdala, the emotional brain, including stress hormones in the bloodstream, increasing muscular tension, and more. Being frequently yelled at as a children changes how we think and feel about ourselves, even after we become adults and leave home. That's because the brain wires according to our experiences. We literally hear our parents' voices yelling at us in our heads, even when they're not there. Attachment and infant mother research confirms that we all intuitively know that humans do better when they feel safe and consistently loved, which means, among other things, being treated with respect. What is news to many of us is that we are born with fully matured, hardwired core emotions like sadness, fear, and anger. And when fear, for example, is repeatedly triggered by a harsh environment, like one where there's a lot of yelling, automatic physical and emotional reactions occur that cause traumatic stress to a child. The stress in their little brains and bodies increases from anything that makes them feel attacked, including loud voices, angry eyes, dismissive gestures, and more. Children do better when they are calm. The calmer, the more connected the caregiver, the calmer and more secure the child, the healthier it is for the child's brain and body. A few things that parents can remember to help young brains develop well is that to know that children have a real emotional need that need proper tending. Learning about core emotions will help your child successfully manage emotions. You can affect your child's self-esteem by being kind, compassionate, and curious about their mind and world. When a break in the relationship occurs, as often happens during conflicts, try to repair the emotional connection with your child as soon as possible. You can help your child feel safe and secure by allowing them to separate from you and become their own person. Then welcoming them back with love and connection even when you are angry or disappointed in their behaviors. When you're a parent, it's not easy to control your temper and realize you've crossed the line into verbal abuse. There's a slippery slope between being a strict disciplinarian and traumatizing a young brain. A little awareness can go a long way. Being aware of one's behavior, listening to our tone of voice and choice of words, and watching our body language will help keep us in check. Little children who can act tough, defiant, or even indifferent to our actions are still vulnerable to trauma. Our own childhood experiences, wonderful, horrible, and everything in between, need to be remembered and honored. And we can all strive to help ourselves and our families evolve for the better, to increase the best, gentle experiences we received as children and reduce the painful ones. Marta, for example, worked hard to recover from her abuse. She strove to develop compassion for herself and self-soothe her distress, both necessary but challenging parts of healing. According to the Taylor Counseling Group, one of the negative effects of yelling is how children process feedback. Children who face regular verbal abuse process negative information more quickly and thoroughly than positive information. Studies revealed that children exposed to verbal aggression from controlling parents are more likely to suffer from low self-esteem, feelings of worthlessness, and persistent sadness. Yelling triggers changes in a child's brain development. And MRI scans of people who experience parental abuse show that frequent exposure to yelling impacts brain structure and processing, especially areas linked to emotions, memory, and stress response. Fear-based discipline doesn't just affect behavior, but also can lead to long-term cognitive challenges. When a harsh environment triggers our fears as children, physical reactions can cause traumatic stress. We may hear our parents' voices even when they're not physically there, influencing how we react to anything that makes us feel threatened. Studies show that yelling triggers heightened neuroactivity in the amygdala, and overactive amygdala can increase stress, which plays a significant role in developing depression. As a result, the exposure to frequent yelling in childhood can cause us to interpret ourselves and the world negatively. This explains why some adults who experience verbal abuse as children struggle with long-term anxiety, emotional regulation, and trust issues. Family counseling can be beneficial in these situations, whether you're a parent or experiencing the effects of verbal aggression. So, short-term effects of yelling, whereas children are especially vulnerable as their brains are still developing, frequent yelling can lead to severe mental health issues and physical health problems, as yelling can worsen behavioral issues and can lead to depression. So for behavioral issues, while a parent's first thought might be yelling to deter their child from misbehaving, it can create more issues. Yelling can make your child's behavior even worse. This can create a cycle of yelling more and more as they attempt to correct their behavior. Children frequently yelled at may believe that their parent is attacking their personality rather than their behavioral issues. This can cause them to act out and continue doing things their parents disapprove of. As mentioned before, while children may feel scared, upset, or hurt when yelled at, verbal abuse can cause mental health issues that can carry into adulthood. Many studies show strong connection between the emotional abuse and depression or long-term anxiety. These symptoms can worsen behavior and even cause self-destructive habits like substance misuse or risk-taking behavior. As there was a lot of psychological information, it's all very, for me, it's all very telling that the devil is very much at work in some people's hearts when it comes to being so negative, so loud, so aggressive towards anybody, whether it's their peers at school or their children. But the devil and his demons deserve to be put in their place when they try to come at us with lies. Because that's all bullying and just hostility in someone's voice. It's all just the devil's tactic to be able to get at us and be able to separate us and divide us. Satan can't directly hurt us, but he can use words to convince us to hurt ourselves or others. We are fed lies from the enemy that our worth are in earthly things, money, looks, career, etc. But in reality, our worth is in God. A woman named Lex, I heard on a podcast, talked about how words affected her throughout her life as a woman, experienced gender dysphoria. She goes to a youth group at church, and a pastor asks for her testimony. At the time, identifying as a male, he responds with, quote, I think it's funny that you haven't mentioned that you're a biological female who's been identifying as Austin, and that you're an abomination, and that you're gonna go to hell. End quote. This is not a person who truly understands Jesus' request for us to love our neighbor. She walked away from that encounter wanting to end her life. Lies that she's heard from the enemy or her drunken mother that she had long forgotten were then flooding back in her mind. And then she kept asking God, why? Why would this happen to me while I've been seeking you? And God responded, forgive him. She was so upset in the moment that she told him she would forgive him a little bit later, but then she went down a dark spiral. A different example of words affecting others is in the abortion industry. Planned Parenthood and others who are pro-choice use so much dehumanizing language to detach the human being from its body. They would call it a clump of cells or a parasite. The child is a problem. There are many rape survivors that were able to keep their babies and don't have regrets. The child gave them hope. Some children of rape have spoken out about how proud they are of their mothers for being able to be stronger than those outside voices telling them to abort. Mark, a crew member of Live Action, of the owners of the podcast I've been listening to, was conceived in rape and has a powerful story of words that have attacked him in the past and how he responded to those attacks. Someone told him that, quote, "As a child conceived in rape, you're an abomination and shouldn't exist," end quote. And he has responded ever since with, quote, "The circumstances of my conception do not determine my worth as a human being," end quote. What people say can have a lasting effect on a lot of people at any given time. Some feel moved by a story in the moment, and some choose to meditate on what was said and not choose to act out on their emotions in the moment. Alright, I know that was pretty heavy today. I just want to say thank you if you've made it this far in the podcast. Please like and subscribe, and comment what you liked about it and what the art of that you would like me to talk about. Please join me next time on How Great Thou Art podcast. And please pray for me as I'll be praying for you guys. Please pray for me, my family, and my little one coming soon. And may we never forget how great thou art. God bless.